Right. Microphone on. Video to the side. Chat in my face. Says I'm live. It's been 2 weeks. Oops. Good evening to everyone who's watching and to those who may well watch this on playback. Welcome to another PMQ stream. I'm starting a little early because I want to get this over and done with, as there are a couple of things I really want to do this evening. This isn't high up on the list, I promise you. Good evening to Patriarch of the Sith, Roger Brown, Lovebirds, Michael Morris, Tiger Lily, how you doing? And Cyrene. Oh, and have we left yet? Sorry, have we left yet? Hope you're all having a nice Wednesday. So yes, PMQs, as you noticed from the thumbnail, which we were lucky enough to even change. Hello Beechin, and I found an issue with YouTube when it comes to changing thumbnails for this channel with live streams. It took 20 attempts of refreshing the page over and 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 over again. Hello Angie. And Nevermore. Hello Karma. To get YouTube to finally accept the one I made, which was irritating me. And for those who did see it, it is themed on B-Team. In the sense that, the Prime Minister is at the D-Day Memorial with a bunch of other world leaders, including, of course, the Don, the God Emperor, whatever you want to call him. I don't give a shit. Let's call him the Butler. I saw the picture of him in a tux. For a guy worth as much as him, he needs to get a better tailor. And so the B team today steps in the form of Dave Liddington, who is the Duchy of Lancaster and something else, I don't know. I don't even know what the Duchy of Lancaster is. It's a ridiculous title. Chancellor and Duchy of Lancaster, I think that's the name. But he's not the Chancellor of the Exchequer, he's not the Chancellor. He's a secretary of some kind, though. And ordinarily, I had believed that it would have been Emily Thornberry instead of Jeremy Corbyn. But no, Jeremy Corbyn has relegated Emily Thornberry to a different position entirely. And the reason for that was because on the night of the EU elections, with the Labour Party doing as well as they did, sarcasm sign somewhere, she was on there and she kind of shone by indicating that she would push for a Patriarch again, pushing for a second referendum, which is and there is obviously a difference here. Corbyn would push for a people's vote. She wants a second referendum. Hello, So Psyched. Because of that, and because she is quite popular, not necessarily within their own party. I mean, she's popular within the party. But she's also quite popular generally because she is very comfortable speaking. He is not. She's very extroverted, and he is very introverted. You can tell because those that are extroverted, they are very capable of speaking like that. Whereas Jeremy Corbyn, hello Jeremy. Hump day, is it? Oh, that's fantastic. He relies heavily on a script. It's why he never answers any of the jabs he gets thrown in his direction, because he doesn't know how to answer it without making a tit of himself. So, taking the place of Emily Thornberry, that has been relegated to the back of the benches somewhere, I have no idea where she is Rebecca Long Bailey, a complete and literal unknown. In the description of this, I called her Hello Faith. I called her a chav. And I called her that because of her voice. I'm going to quickly switch over here for a second because I want you to see something. It is going to become very much apparent there is still something going on and wrong in Parliament. Parliament houses 620-odd MPs. Something near to that anyway. So what you're about to see will make you wonder what's going on. Does anyone in the chat see the problem with this picture? This is the very start of PMQs, by the way. I'm not skipping over anything, but it is of interest to me, and this happened last time with PMQs as well. So I'll give you a second. There are a number of, in this PMQs, a number of different subjects. Thankfully, Brexit is not on the list. In fact, even the SNP don't. Going so far as to push a lie, one that they themselves, well, not a lie, going so far as to push a misleading piece of information on the grounds that they have decided to negate the correction so as to make a grander point. Yes, you're all quite right. It is emptier than usual. The Conservative benches especially are empty. Usually there are MPs here, stood around, loads of them normally jockeying for position, and these benches here all empty. There are a few spaces here, but not many, but it's still reasonable, not so much. I did notice on Twitter, for those who are interested, many complain about how the Conservatives are essentially just white men in their 50s, thinking they understand the common person, but then if I skip over here, these guys don't understand the common person either, because all they think they can do to solve a problem is to throw money at it, with no understanding of the process. Anyway, today's subjects would include renewable energy, which is quite a hot topic, Donald Trump, of course, and the NHS. Hello, Ventello. Hope you're well. So let's dive into that.
Questions to the Prime Minister. Tim Lawton. Number one, sir. Prime Minister.
Notice he got that wrong. I'm going to let the guy who's going to ask his first question ask it, because it's incredibly pertinent. Did you naughty Brits shoot at Conservatives? No, they are backbenchers who want nothing to do with what's going on at the moment. Hello, Reason Vision. And yes, I was going to make an A-Team themed thumbnail, but I didn't have the time. I'll make it tomorrow and alter it, probably, maybe. No, I won't. Fuck it.
Mr. Speaker, I have been asked to reply. My right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, is today with other world leaders in Portsmouth to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings.
And the leader of the opposition is more than likely leading protests that I will discuss tomorrow with Trups, because he's not available on Friday, so tomorrow's stream will be politics. So I'll move all the Trump state visit stuff till then, where we'll discuss the inadequate, lackluster, quite frankly, laughable protests. Hello, Lulu Bell. Hope you're well. And hello, Blade.
That operation involved... This event today will involve more than 4,000 personnel in D-Day events in the United Kingdom and in France, and it will involve representatives from every country that fought alongside the United Kingdom in Operation Overlord, and, appropriately, our former adversaries as well.
Losers. Hello, James Woodwright. Hope you're well.
And I'm sure that members right across the House will want to join me in paying tribute to the sacrifice of those who fought to secure the liberty and peace that we enjoy today, and for the courage that made possible then the restoration of democracy, human rights and the rule of law to our continent of Europe. Yeah.
Nope, not gonna. Nope, not taking that bait.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure also that the whole House will want to join me in sending our very best wishes to our Muslim constituents here in the United Kingdom and to Muslims around the world celebrating Eid al-Fitr. I had meetings...
To the chat, what is Operation Overlord? It was the code name for the Battle of Normandy, which was the invasion of German-occupied Western Europe during World War II. That's right, we won. And we gave it a cool name as well.
With ministerial colleagues and others earlier today, and I shall be having further such meetings later on today.
Tim Lawton. Mr. Speaker, as the Chancellor says, today in Portsmouth and tomorrow in Normandy, we honour the veterans and the 150,000 British, American, Canadian and other Allied troops who led the charge to liberate Europe against the real Nazi scum.
That's a really good start to a point he's going to make, because obviously that's a direct reference to those who continually say the right-wing extremists are neo-Nazis and all this bollocks. No, they're not Nazis, they're not new Nazis. Shut the fuck up. Pricks. Hello, Kingslayer.
So does my right honourable friend agree that when a minority of hate-fueled demonstrators yell Nazi scum in the faces of American tourists and intimidate others legitimately welcoming the visit of the American president, however we may take issue with him, and regrettably spurred on by certain honourable members of this House, that they attack the greatest alliance of free nations and they demean the memory of those brave troops and veterans whose very sacrifice secured the right of all of us to free speech and to protest lawfully?
I like this person at the moment. I don't know anything about him, so I don't know his policies. Damning points from what he said. He mentioned honourable members. That is a direct reference to Tom Watson, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, and Jeremy Corbyn, Sadiq Khan, and a number of other MPs who aren't there today because they were too busy protesting against Donald Trump. When your foreign policy is to essentially put your fingers in your ears and go, la, 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 I won't deal with you because I don't like you, la, 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 you make Donald Trump look like a grown-up, even if he did look like a very, very weak tea butler next to the Queen. What kind of pleb goes out of their way to insult the most powerful person? Because you disagree with me, yes, I will admit, Trump is not as amazing as many people blindly say. There are a number of things he's said and done that are questionable. But those are done domestically, and they are therefore not our problem. They are America's problem. And if we want to and need to trade with them, then we have to trade with them. It is an international thing. One of the reasons for leaving the EU was to trade abroad. That didn't mean we ignored America because we don't like the current president. Can you imagine that? All trade is determined on whether or not governments like each other. And not because it's mutually beneficial for both countries. Or whether or not your politics align, or whether or not you like someone because of optics. How petty is that? You've been sexist, have you, Angie? And racist. There's a naughty step for that. Go find it, sit on it. Naughty. Interestingly with the Nazi thing, I know that a number of people have been arrested for milkshaking, as others are calling it. I know that's happened in America now, and I know that somebody did throw a milkshake on the guy that was called a Nazi, the American tourist who's a Trump supporter. And I know also that the person who did it, the really gobby blonde lady, she did in fact apologise. Whether she did that to his face or not, I don't know. She was too busy showing us just how big the cock is that fits in that mouth. Anyway.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with every word that my honourable friend has just said. And I think that it's worth reminding ourselves that the fact that we and our neighbouring countries across the Channel enjoy today the freedom to express our views publicly, to assemble and to demonstrate our points of view, to argue peacefully against one another in this place, are derived from the courage and the sacrifice of the wartime generation, whether from the United Kingdom or the United States of America or our other allies, and we should remember and salute that courage and that sacrifice and not demean it by describe the sort of disgraceful behaviour to which my honourable friend referred.
Rebecca Long-Bailey.
Ah, this is going to be fun. I'm very sorry. Oh wait, hang on. Heard about straight pride in Boston. What a troll could not stop. That's a thing. Straight pride, is that actually a thing? I didn't. I'm speechless. Although I can understand many people saying that straight pride is in and of itself homophobic. It's not, but I get it. It's like, I guess eventually there's going to be the it's okay to be straight hashtag or something, and someone's just going to pounce on that and say that's homophobic. So, but you're doing gay pride. Actually, I would point out gay pride in and of it, because that's what it was originally, wasn't it? Now it's just pride, because that was exclusionary. Pride Month, though, doesn't actually include heterosexuality. It includes allies in that rather long acronym that they've added additional letters on, one of the A's being ally. That doesn't really mean straight pride, and I think maybe they should replace ally with S. Because, let's face it, in the grand scheme of things, yes, okay, they make up the majority, but there's nothing wrong with being proud of being straight if you are straight. Although virtually everyone I know appears to be bisexual, and it's driving me insane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it's a pleasure to be stepping in on behalf of my colleagues today, and indeed to be opposite the right honourable gentleman. And might I echo his comments made regarding the marking of the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landing, which are being commemorated today in Portsmouth. We must never forget the extraordinary sacrifices of all those who landed that day in Normandy, and the achievements of our servicemen and women who came together to fight fascism and protect our freedom. I'd also like to wish an Eid al-Fitr to all of our Muslim friends right across the United Kingdom, and I also want to express solidarity to all women fighting pension injustice in court and outside Parliament today.
Right, the pension injustice is a reference to the waspy women who were born in the 50s who have taken the case against the government to the Supreme Court, where they believe that for them, the retirement age for the ladies born in the 50s should be brought back down to 60 so that they can retire. I disagree with this, because we are an ageing nation, which shows quality of life has improved, meaning you shouldn't... Pensioners were never meant to live as long as they do, unless they can support themselves. The fact you've taken this to court means you can't, and you just want to get into that little comfortable spot where you don't have to give a damn or work anymore. And that's fine, but people who can do that do it because they've earned the right to. I'm not saying you haven't earned the right to, though, to be clear. I'm saying because you are living longer statistically, and it's been proven that we are living longer, you should fall in line with the rest of us and retire at the correct age like everyone else that has to, or can do, at 65 and above. That's an unpopular opinion, because obviously there are issues that arise. Women certainly do experience more health issues at a younger age, and I do feel sorry for them in that regard. However, this is about a very, very simple principle of equality. That is equality. You retire at the same time as a guy. And it sounds wrong, but it's not.
I'd also like to congratulate both
Oh god, this is going to be gay.
English teams who competed in the Champions League final on Saturday. And as a Man United fan, it pains me to congratulate Liverpool on their victory.
No one cares.
Although fair play, fans did rename Margaret Thatcher Square in Madrid Jeremy Corbyn Square. And I reckon that deserves brownie points even from a Man United fan.
No, that's pandering and gay. Hang on, which team does Corbyn support again? Was it Watford, Hull? Was it Leeds? Millwall? Oh, it's not Millwall. They're too white. I can't remember, because he supports all the teams.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister had to repeat to President Trump a journalist's question about whether the NHS is on the table as part of a US trade deal. Given the Prime Minister was silent on the matter, perhaps the right honourable gentleman could clarify the government's position. Will the Tory party give US companies access to the NHS, yes or no?
Right, so first of all, Trump did say that the NHS was on the table. However, he did in fact correct it and concede it was not on the table. They all know this. Trump did outright say that. He knew he got it wrong, and he corrected himself the next day. The question is misleading. Allowing US businesses to operate within the NHS doesn't mean what she is trying to make it mean. Oh, by the way, I've just noticed Emily Thornberry right here. Relegated with McDonnell over here. So that the picture of three ladies, young ladies at the front, is there. Although I can't help but notice they're all white as Fook. Yes, back to the question though. It is very misleading. There is nothing wrong with the US working with our NHS. US businesses working with our NHS, I'm all for that. I'm not all for it because in the sense of the promoting and privatising aspect where our prescriptions go through the roof to pay for drugs that are considered fancy, fad and blah blah blah. However, when it comes to medical advancements, we could do with that. We can work with that, and I'm okay with that. Experimental new procedures, new techniques. I think that's good. We should work together. In fact, I think both of us could benefit from that. I don't see us working with businesses from the US as a bad thing. I only do if we sell bits of it. But, and the Conservatives have repeatedly said this, although been debunked a little, but not at the same time, the NHS is not for sale. That is what the Conservatives have said. Now, they have sold NHS assets. That sounds on the face of it bad, doesn't it? Well, that's not entirely what it is. They've sold derelict land and empty buildings. That's what they sold. Assets that were not in use. Assets that were surplus to requirement. And Silver, hello, Okie native as well. I did hear Cog's stream where Sinatra mentioned it. I'm really happy, though, that he's not giving up. That maybe he'll be able to fix it. He'll be able to remove stuff. That he'll be able to correct it, because he can correct it. There is a way to do that. He does get donations. I hope people continue to support him that way. So, yeah. I actually, when hearing that, I won't deny, I was a bit scared for a second, because I could myself get hit, but then I realised I am basically a nobody. No one knows who I am, so it's okay. I think I'm okay for now. So yes, but yeah, the question was misleading, and we're only one question in. I do apologise for dawdling on that, but it was a fundamental point that had to be raised.
Well, can I first of all welcome the Honourable Lady to these new responsibilities for her, and to agree with the comments she made both about D-Day and about the success of English football teams in the recent 2 European Championships, and also to wish well to both the English and Scottish women's 11 for their forthcoming matches. I welcome the Honourable Lady. I feel slightly sorry for the Right Honourable Lady, the member for Islington South, who I'm used to jousting with, who seems to have been dispatched to internal exile somewhere else along the front bench. And, you know, it's perhaps it's just the Honourable Lady perhaps needs to watch out, because I think there's a lesson there that anybody who at the dispatch box outshines the dear leader risks being...
While this is all quite amusing and cringy, I will give Liddington some credit. Others will absolutely hammer their opponent, but he is so full to the brim of benevolent sexism, can't do it. He can't actually hammer a woman. He can't do it. He can't attack them. But he's trying to, and it fails so miserably. And it is Mr. Burns talking about football, basically, yes.
risks being airbrushed out of the Politburo history at the earliest opportunity.
Also, credit to him, he's not reading from a script.
My right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, has been very clear, and she spoke for everyone in the government and on this side of the House. When it comes to trade negotiations, the NHS is not and will not be up for sale.
Rebecca Long-Bailey.
He's full of the banter today, Mr. Speaker. Well, the President certainly seemed to think the NHS was on the table yesterday.
But he took it off the table when he corrected himself.
So does the Trade Secretary, but who knows who speaks for the government at the moment? And the Prime Minister did nothing to allay concerns yesterday. So I hope she was more forceful in raising climate change, with a President who initiated the US withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement.
Something which I'm going to discuss with Trups tomorrow, because I'm pretty sure there was a reason for that, and I don't think it was so much because he's a climate change denier. I believe it was something else, but I had completely forgotten what it was.
Conduct record amounts of land for oil and gas drilling.
Which isn't a bad thing, but we'll certainly get to your environmentalist moments in a moment. You're going to contradict yourself soon, I promise you.
And called climate change a hoax.
Wasn't he joking when he said that?
Can the right honourable gentleman confirm if yesterday the Prime Minister made any attempt to convince him that climate change is in fact real?
This is an interesting question, because climate change as a turn of phrase is real. Climate is always changing. It will always change. But you're meaning a very because you've opened the question up so vaguely, you're trying to lead it as a specific type of climate change. I think that's quite interesting. It's weak. Many people, by the way, on Twitter think that the chav, nerdy-looking chav, and I say chav, by the way, because she doesn't normally wear glasses, and her face is usually caked in makeup like some kind of Essex tramp. Okay, I'm going to continue.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, my right friend, the Prime Minister, did raise climate change with the President yesterday, and she made clear at their joint press conference yesterday afternoon that that is what she had done. We are very proud of this country's commitment to the international agreements to reduce global carbon emissions, and we have a better track record in reducing those emissions than any other G7 member state.
That is true. The government... Oh, I've got my notes in front of me. Right, so... the current CO2 emissions reduction targets the government has, they've met the first 2 of the 5 they'd set, but they are currently 6% short of the current target they're aiming for, which I believe is it 51% reduction in carbon emissions? Let me just go and pull it up. Scroll. Oh no, 37%, sorry, 51% by 2025. Oh no, that is the one. So for 2025, they want to have carbon emissions down from the 1990s level of 51%. They are currently 6%, based on the track they're on, they are 6% behind that target. But it's still possible they can get there. Beechin, thank you for that information about removing the restrictions on US oil and gas. I do appreciate that. That does actually make more sense now that you've mentioned it. So let's go back to the video.
Long Bailey.
Speaker, the statistics that the right honourable gentleman referred to relates to emissions cuts since 2010, when the UK benefited from policies put in by the last Labour government, policies which have since been dismantled. But how...
That's not entirely true, actually. The statistics he was referencing come from the Committee on Climate Change. So, and those statistics actually, those numbers come from recent years, actually, October 2017, from something more commonly known as the Clean Growth Strategy. She also made a claim there that the Conservatives are dismantling it. Actually, the Conservatives have been strengthening this to the point where they are doing everything they can to... Well, okay, so Labour did introduce a number of policies, many of them which were unfeasible, had to be taken away, had to be repurposed, reborn, hello Devonor, had to be changed to, well, actually work. Where is it? Oh, no, actually, I'm going to let her continue for a minute, because she's going to say something stupid again. But yeah, the dismantling of policies, because your policies didn't work. That simple. Okay?
How much authority does this government actually have on this issue?
Well, they're in government, so all of it.
3 current cabinet ministers have denied the scientific consensus on climate change, and several of
I don't know who they are. I went looking, but couldn't find them.
those standing in the Tory leadership contest have close links with organisations and individuals promoting climate denial.
So? Guilt by association means nothing.
Mr. Speaker, it does not bode well. Figures released in April show that the UK is set to miss its own carbon budgets by an ever-widening margin.
No, it's not ever widening, it's 6%. It's really, really small.
Would the right honourable gentleman like to explain why the government is off track to meeting its own targets?
Mr. Speaker, we're not off track towards meeting those targets at all. Since 2010, the United Kingdom has decarbonised our economy faster than any other G7 country. We generate now a record amount of electricity from renewable energy sources.
This is true. Not going to doubt that. I could actually read the exact number. Where is it? Scroll down. I know you're here somewhere. No, not Deputy Leader. Where are you? Oh, yeah. 8.2 terawatts in March of 2019. It's a record high. We are one of the highest to generate such renewable energy. I would point out, though, that since a number of it comes from solar energy and wind farms, and solar power isn't exactly the most environmentally friendly to make, it's not like a totally valid point, is it?
And we have just gone through the longest period in our history without relying on electricity generated from coal. That stands rather starkly against what appears to be the Labour Party's declared policy, which is to reopen the coal mines, but not actually to burn the coal that they mine.
Yeah, to sell it instead, which completely contradicts everything.
Long Bailey.
To be clear, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Party does not condone the reopening of any coal mine to be used for energy purposes.
That's actually bullshit.
And once again, Mr. Speaker, he refers to climate emissions reductions that were implemented using Labour Party policy.
Yeah, because they worked then. What's your point? It's a very weird flex, really, isn't it? Ooh, we introduced the policy, yes, and because it worked, but wasn't really working as well as it could be, we kind of tore it apart, rebuilt it, and made it work better. It's a very weird flex.
Labour policies that have since been dismantled, and not only is the government failing to meet its targets, but last year actually saw the smallest drop in carbon emissions in the last 6 years, just 2%.
Incorrect. It was 2.5. Come on. And I'll be honest, reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 2.5% in 2018 is actually good. I mean, yes, it's not as good as it could be, but that's still good. It's a reduction. Considering the increased population, more cars on the road, and more businesses, I think it's quite, generate considerable amount of greenhouse gases. I think actually this is a good thing. It's a reduction.
At that rate, it would take until the end of the century to reach net zero emissions.
Which is virtually impossible until we actually make some rather in-depth progress in certain scientific advancements. Like, I don't know, harnessing energy from a fucking dead star. It's not going to happen.
And Mr. Speaker,
Unless we all go back to caves. I mean, I'm all for that. I mean, who isn't on board with the idea of, instead of, going out and meeting people, just clubbing over the back of the head and dragging them back to your cave. No emissions, everyone. Problem solved. And at least you won't have to worry about your Facebook profile or Twitter.
Yesterday, the Financial Times reported that the government is accused of trying to fiddle its emissions figures, ignoring its official...
Yeah, I read that. It was actual bullshit. Hello, Director Greyhound. And hello, Christophorus. Christophorus? Ah! Sorry. My apologies for mispronouncing your name. I read the article, though. It was nonsense. Hello, Antoninus. Antoninus? Oh, dear God. I need to improve my pronunciation skills. Anyway, yes. The accusation of diddling the stats, proven wrong already, because I just read where the stats came from. Therefore, no. You're wrong.
Advisors. So let me ask the right honourable gentleman a simple policy question. The Labour Party has committed to banning fracking. Will the government ban fracking?
Why? Oh, dear. Okay. This is the nuclear argument all over again. Oh, we shouldn't have nuclear power plants because of... And then list off all the reasons, starting with a three-eyed fish. Okay. But it's really good energy. What's your point? Fracking, there's the same thing. Yes, we are certainly more enlightened with nuclear energy now, so we're not as afraid. But it's the same with fracking. Once more enlightened, and once more research is done, I actually think it's of huge benefit to us. I'm not remotely against it. I do think that there are risks if they do it too near communities, but...
fracking and allow new onshore wind in England, yes or no?
Also, these demanding questions of yes or no. PMQs would be so much quicker if people did that.
What the government is committed to is to reducing emissions in line with both our domestic and global targets. And we have not just met, but we have outperformed our first and second carbon budgets, and we are on track towards meeting the third.
I would point out, because they did exceed the targets, the first two targets, but they're 6% short, even though they had a head start. So they're not doing as well as they might think they are.
Going to be a need for some time into the future to use gas as a transitional fuel, but that is much less polluting than other forms of hydrocarbon-based energy, and it therefore is a good source during the transition period while we make ready...
But there you said it. I was talking to other people about this impatience. I don't understand how so many people lack it. And yes, saving the world is important. You know, because first thing we have to do is save the cheerleader, and then we can do that. But, cringy joke aside, we shouldn't just jump straight into it like that. We must do it gradually, because the shock would cause our economy to collapse. Hello, Echo. Thank you for joining us.
Ready to move to a completely decarbonised economy.
Rebecca Long-Bailey!
Well, this is absolutely staggering. The government promotes fracking, backed by only 12% of the public, effectively blocks on...
Because they don't know what fracking is. You can't... Also, the source that cited 12% of people are supporting fracking, they pulled like 1,000 people from a rural area that knew nothing about fracking. Come on, get good.
Onshore wind, backed by 79% of the public.
Yeah, but we don't exactly have, like, all the space in the world for wind farms, do we?
Solar is down 94%.
Because it's really hard to make them and really environmentally unfriendly, and they don't exactly have the longest shelf life.
Home insulation is down 98%.
Well, to be fair, people don't need to be warm to live, do they?
Mr. Speaker, Parliament declared a climate emergency, yet there is no evidence this government takes this seriously. We need a green industrial revolution to tackle climate change.
Are people going to be burning their hemp brass?
And alone, Swansea Tidal Lagoon would have required 100,000 tonnes of steel, mainly from Port Talbot, but the government refused to back it.
Right. Now, this is an interesting point. This is a really interesting point. Because she's taking the side of the steel industry here. Now, I don't know about any of you, but at last I checked, the steel industry was one of the most environmentally unfriendly industries in this country. Who the fuck thought that was the right move to now take the position of, let's back the steel industry? Even in this context, this is still a really shitty position to take. You just lost all your green points because you decided that you wanted to back environmentally unfriendly when it suited you. Genius.
Can the right honourable gentleman tell us what the government has actually done since signing the Steel Charter to support our steel industry?
Mr. Speaker, if one looks at what is actually happening in the real world, rather than the ideological tracts which the Honourable Lady appears to spend her time reading, you will see, Mr. Speaker, that there are about 400,000 jobs already in low-carbon businesses and their supply chains throughout the United Kingdom, and scope for much more low-carbon growth to support up to 2 million jobs in the future. We now have received advice from the Independent Climate Change Committee about how to time and to legislate for our transition to a completely decarbonised economy, and we will be bringing forward our decisions later this year as to how and when we will be taking that action.
I assume this will be long after a new Prime Minister is brought in and Brexit is dealt with, if at all.
Along, Bailey!
Well, the Independent Climate Change Committee has repeatedly criticised the government's approach to decarbonising our economy. But I know in the right honourable gentleman's response there was not a single word on what support the government will provide the steel industry. And people from...
They don't have to, because they've offered them bailouts already. He doesn't have to restate what is already known. The steel industry were going to be bailed out after the going to administration, but yeah, no, that wasn't going to work out. Nah, we're not doing that.
Redcar to Scunthorpe know that his empty rhetoric will not solve their catastrophe. Mr. Speaker, climate change is an existential threat.
Yeah, so why is a tiny little country like ours so worried about it as if we can save the world from our tiny little country? We should do our part, yes. We should certainly consider promoting it in other countries where they are less enlightened. And perhaps try and help those that are a bit stunted, who have rather vast countries, to understand it better. But unless you intend to make the empire great again, which, by the way, I kept saying make England great again for mega hats. Nah. Make the empire great again, but make the T in the silent so it's not the. To make empire great again, mega hats. How's that? Unless you intend to steamroll that, it'd be read like Labour. So we just conquer the world and tell everyone, back to your caves with you. Oh, and all white people, can you please line up over there so we can shoot you?
To safeguard our future, we will need to mobilise all of our resources, just like we did when we rebuilt Britain after the Second World War.
You didn't rebuild shit. You're probably servicing someone in their glory hole.
If we took the challenge seriously, we could create hundreds of thousands of jobs in low-carbon industries.
Not true. At all. The investment required is far too high. To create the jobs, you'd have to have a turnaround that would be profitable, and it wouldn't actually be profitable. You are wrong.
Reverse decades of decline in our deindustrialised areas and lead the world.
Why were they deindustrialised again? What caused it? Oh, God, there's a word. It's on the tip of my tongue. It rhymes with session.
World in renewable technologies, but the government is letting us down.
They didn't have much of a choice after the last government let them down, now did they?
They have recklessly run the clock down on Brexit.
Yep, They did.
But I say to the right honourable member, isn't it the truth that their failure is now running down the clock on our planet?
Oh, the cringe. Jesus Christ. He's going to give a very long answer to the point where the speaker's actually going to interrupt him and force a question from someone else. So, let's see how far through Liddington can get, because he's going to get pretty uptight. That was the cringiest last question, by the way. I don't think, by the way, performance-wise, she did that bad. But I do believe some of her information was incorrect. I still find it quite troubling and problematic that all three women on the front are white, when they could have, if they really wanted to get some oppression points, put the Sikh that's behind the lady on the right, but he's to the right of her, behind her, on the front bench, and they could have replaced the actual librarian on the left with, Dawn Porter, since she usually sits there. In fact, the entire Labour front bench is white. Huh. How interesting. But then so's the Conservatives. Oh, no, it isn't. One at the end.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the honourable lady asked about government help for the steel industry. The answer to her question is that we have provided taxpayer-funded subsidies to cut energy costs in the steel industry. We have supported globally and introduced here trade defence measures to shut out unfair competition and dumping from steel. And when I was in Sheffield a few days ago, I talked to specialist steelmakers in South Yorkshire who welcome this government's commitment there to the Advanced Manufacturing Centre, to the work that we are doing on technical and vocational training, and who were optimistic about the future of steelmaking and manufacturing in this country under the policies that my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Business, has been taking through. Now, the truth is, when I looked at the honourable lady's video about the Labour Party's new commitment to a green, they term a green industrial revolution,
It's cringe.
Concluded with a focus on the words about renationalisation. Bring back into public ownership, as if that were the way forward.
Also, the whole renationalisation thing, well, it's not really public ownership, is it? It's not like any of us going to roll the dice to see who's in charge of it. No, it means the government does. More micromanaging, because that works. I'm going to skip ahead, because this is going to bore me. I want to go straight to the Scottish person. Where is she? Oh, there she is, right.
Day. An important reminder that climate change remains the biggest challenge facing the world.
I have no idea who she is.
And also, I'd like to wish a very, very happy Eid Mubarak to all of those celebrating across the UK today.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yesterday, Donald Trump said that the NHS was on the table.
Yeah. You're about to admit simultaneously that he also went back on it, but then summarily ignore that to make a grand point about the NHS being up for sale in Scotland.
In the trade talks with the UK. Today, he says he's not so sure. This is someone who doesn't even believe in climate change.
What? What does his not believing in climate change have to do with him walking back on the NHS? You bellend. I feel like we need the she's not really touching the paper as much, but I'm going to put him on the screen anyway because we need him. The paper fiddler is not there today, no. He's too busy fucking his ream.
A president who simply cannot be trusted.
Oh, that's a subjective. That's just rude. Come on. He cannot be trusted for what reason? Because he doesn't believe in climate change. Bollocks.
Why then is the UK government so obsessed with pursuing a trade deal that puts Scotland's NHS at risk?
Okay, two things. We're trading with America, not the president, so fucking what the hell is that? And what was that? Oh, no, there was another point. I gotta go back. Oh, yeah, no, it was the NHS thing. Right. So, you even said he backtracked on it. So what is your point when it comes to you believing your NHS is under threat when he has already backtracked? You've openly actually ignored it to make some point about the president. But we're not trading with the president. We're trading with America. We want to trade with America. And yeah, Beechin, they shouldn't be.
Mr. Speaker, the government is not putting the NHS at risk in Scotland or anywhere else, and the Prime Minister has made that very clear indeed. What I fear is putting at risk standards in the NHS in Scotland is the SNP's obsession with constitutional matters and a referendum, rather than focusing on the better delivery of public services.
They're about to make a pissing contest joke, and I think I should just nip this one in the bud now. Having more GPs doesn't mean you have a better service. Thought I should just mention it now. Ah, your president is America. My mistake. Yeah, Lulu, I know.
Black man!
Mr. Speaker, we have the best performing NHS in the UK.
No, you don't.
The highest number with the highest number of GPs per
That doesn't mean shit.
head of population.
In fact, that just means you have more GPs. That's not something to brag about. Those are the people who get to retire like 55 because they've earned enough to be able to fuck off early. They're the people that aren't in the hospitals. They're the people who sit on their arse sitting with the same retards going in and day out with a dribbly nose. They're not something to brag about. It's that is an equally weird flex because it's not something to brag about. Yeah, there are only like 2,000-3,000 people in Scotland, and this one is one of them.
If this week has proven anything, it has proven that there is no guarantee our NHS is safe.
Oh, shut the fuck up. You're trying to ignore something you've already admitted to make a point that doesn't stack up. You're trying to do it from the stance that your NHS is under threat, because yours is so much better than the rest of the UK. Right, let's talk about that for a second. The only reason you're able to fund your NHS isn't because of the money you get as a devolved administration, it's because you've had to increase tax by such a huge amount that you are then able to fund all those precious GPs that can then retire at 55, which, by the way, will come back to bite you on the ass in a few years' time when they start retiring. Fact is, you're making your economy weak because you're hurting everyone. You're trying to brag about this as if it's a pissing contest instead of focusing on actually providing services when there are targets your NHS haven't met for years. And we're keeping Karen Gillan. We're keeping her.
In 2014, Westminster promised Scotland's NHS would be in public hands for as long as the people of Scotland wanted it.
Well, it won't be in your hands much longer if you go for that independence and get it. Good luck trying to fund your own National Health Service when you only get National Health Service from us. Literally paid for by the rest of the UK. You feckless, spineless, gormless worms. I'm done with you already. I'm not even going to bother with a question because she's boring the crap out of me. So let's go back here. That was productive, wasn't it? As you can see, the B team in full effect, showing why they are in fact the B team. To be honest, I don't know who won it. I do think the Labour, Rebecca Long Bailey, whatever her name was, she did okay. Lidington did his usual, passable. He's definitely not leadership material. And Gobby Midget, she showed why, she showed the very best of Scottish retard. So that's just fantastic. I am going to finish this now because I want to go and do something else before I write for tomorrow's video. I will be back here tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. GMT with Trups LP for a political recap. We're going to focus, I believe, predominantly on that state visit. Yeah, so if you want to join us, by all means do so. I'll try and set up the stream soon for that. Other than that, have a lovely day. Thank you all very much for joining me. Oh, and thank you, Vent Hello, for the £2 donation. That's very good of you. And I know they come from Chatham, Kent. Good night, everyone.